If you're like me and you hate making these little wire loops for your jewelry and they never end up being the same size and like just makes your hands hurt after a while with just bending all the wires, then this tool I'm going to show you in a minute is just for you. So let me introduce you guys to the one-step looper. Every time I use this tool, I always think of Shark Tank because it's such a cool little invention. And I wonder, why didn't I think of that? This tool is made by Beadsmith, and I have the 1.5 millimeter loop. This is the one I use the looper on. So the 1.5 millimeters is the measurement in the inside of the loop. So I thought this thing was new, but it's actually been around for a few years. I'm curious, do any of you guys have this already? And if you do, how do you like it? Let me know in the comments. So this tool will actually make these little loops for you that I have on the top. And you can also use it to make connectors like these two. And just like the name of the tool, it actually does make these loops in one step. Before I was using all three of these tools and it ends up being quite a few steps to make that just one little loop. This is the box that it came in and it says create and trim eye pins in one motion. You can also use head pins. And also forms and trims wire between 24 to 18 gauge. So when I use it, I use 20 gauge wire, which is this one. This is copper wire. And this is 20 gauge aluminum wire. Or I'll use head pins that are stainless steel and they are 22 gauge. I don't know if I'd go as small as 24. If you didn't know already, gauge is measured where the higher the number, the thinner the wire. So 24 is pretty thin, and if you're making loops for something, it's probably not a good idea to make a loop that thin because, you know, if you pull on it, it might open up. So I would stay with a thicker wire. So they also have a little photo on the back, like a little diagram, where it shows you how to do it. And this one, the wire isn't quite long enough to go through that hole in the back, so they just have it shown like this, and then showing it clamped together. But this one, the wire goes all the way through. So when the wire goes all the way through, it's a little bit easier to use, but you can still use it this way too if your wire's too short. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but I wanted to show you a few things on here. So you have this little pin here, and then you also have these two little clamps. So you're going to string your wire straight through here, and then there's a little hole right here where your wire will come out if it's long enough, and it kind of keeps it centered. So what you're going to do is string your beads on, which I already strung these little beads on this little head pin. So you slide it through here, and then you're going to have your beads go all the way up to that first little clamp. And you can see my wire doesn't go all the way to the hole. It's almost there, but not quite. And then what you want to do is make sure that wire is centered right in the middle of that clamp, because that'll keep it straight when you bend it. So you can kind of clamp it down just a little bit to keep it in place. And then you want to make sure, oh, you don't want to do that. So you want your bead all the way up to that edge there. And then you can kind of press it down a little bit so it stays in place. So one more important thing is you want to have like a little trash can or something to catch your wire that comes off when you cut it, because it will go flying and they're super hard to find, and you definitely do not want to step on one of these. So when you cut it, I always kind of angle it towards my little trash can. And then you just push it together like this. And then you can kind of release it and it'll come out. And there's your loop. So sometimes you'll notice it doesn't always squeeze all the way together, but normally if you're making something like this, you're putting it on a chain or something like that. So I just usually just set them aside, and then when I'm ready to put them on, I open it up and then put it on the chain and then close it up all the way. So you don't have to do it 2 times. No need to do any extra work. So real quick, I'll also show you how to make a little connector, which is pretty easy. So you thread your wire straight through here, and it helps if your wire is straight. So you may need to straighten it out. This one has a little curve to it. That looks better. So we can thread our wire through here, and I do like to have it coming out on the end there. It just helps it stay in place a little bit better. So I'm going to center that, make sure it's going straight, and then cut it. Must have turned my hand a little bit with that one because it got a little bit off center. We'll just straighten that out. And then you'll just want to cut off a little bit of wire. And then you can string your bead on. And then you just put it through like you normally do. And go all the way to the bead down there. Not quite all the way in. There it goes. And then you're just going to cut your wire again and squeeze. And then you may have to straighten these out if you want them going a certain direction. So for me, it's a lot easier than using those 3 tools, and it's a lot easier on my hands. You can also use aluminum wire with it, just the same way. Sometimes I have found with making the connectors, they have a little bit of a gap. So the bead's a little bit loose on there, if you can tell. It doesn't want to loop all the way to the end. So if that bothers you, then you may not want to use the looper tool, or if you do use the looper, then you just have to manually correct that. For me, I mainly use the one-step looper for things like this, like a little drop or something like that. So they're really easy to use once you get the hang of it. Even my 9-year-old niece used it while she was here over Thanksgiving, and she made all these drops for me in here. She loved it so much, she was asking me, what else can I make? I let her make all these in here too. And she did so many of them, I couldn't believe it. She is a good little helper. So if you like the one looper tool and you think it would help you with your jewelry making, I'll leave my Amazon affiliate link in the description below, and it'll take you right to the looper tool. And that way you can purchase it real easy. They actually have a 2.25 millimeter looper tool and a 3 millimeter. So obviously I'm using the 1.5, but if you needed a little bit bigger loops, then you can do that too. So I hope you guys enjoyed learning how to use the one-step looper tool. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.